Today we're talking about why it's important to have an emergency fund. An emergency fund serves the purpose of allowing you to support your family and take care of yourself in times of hardship. It allows you to stay level-headed and not really stressed as much as you probably would if you didn't know how you were going to put food on the table the next day. By building up an emergency fund, it will teach you discipline and basically give you a means of savings without actually putting in any effort at all, because it's just going to unconsciously build up over time. The way you do this is by transferring a very small portion of your salary every time you get paid into this account and just forgetting about it. And over time, you'll see that it will just add up to thousands of dollars. But before we go over that, let's just talk about what an emergency fund is. Rule of thumb of what an emergency fund is when you build up enough savings to cover at least 3 months worth of living costs and expenses, but generally it would be more towards 6 to 12 months worth of living costs and expenses. It is only ever accessed when you do not have money anywhere else or support from anyone else. It is a lifeline. It is the last thing you will touch before you are on the street. So leading on into when does an emergency fund actually get used? And the answer is hopefully never. Hopefully you get to retirement and you don't need to withdraw on that money and you can give it to your family, you can go on a holiday, or you can buy something nice with all the money that you've saved up over the last 40 plus years. But like I said earlier, the only time you will use it is if you've exhausted all other options and must draw that money out of your accounts to survive. Some examples of where to store your emergency fund would be a high interest savings account. At the moment, with the current climate, it's probably not the best way forward because, in Australia, the highest percentage you're gonna get on a savings account is like 0.5%. It's terrible. It's not gonna make you any money. Its purpose is to just sit there as a lifeline, but obviously if you can put it in a situation where it can maximize your returns, that is ideal. So high interest saver is the blatant 100% easiest option. Go to your bank, open an account that you can still access that pays you interest, and put that money in there and forget about it. Never even bother touching it. Only keep adding to it until you get to your limit, which we'll talk about how to build one in a second. Another option would just be to put it in an everyday savings account, something that, again, the purpose of it is to just sit there for as long as possible without ever being touched. So even if it's just in a general savings account, which offers you an even lower interest rate than a high interest saver, doesn't matter. It's in the account, it's building up over time, leave it there. Another option is building an emergency fund in an offset account. Offset accounts are used to negate paying interest on a loan. So I have a home loan and I have an offset account. I put all my money into that offset account. Building an emergency fund in an offset account is a totally viable option. Now, I don't recommend this one, but it's a totally viable option, and that would be to build an emergency fund in cash. If you're someone who really likes to store cash in your bedroom, putting it away for a rainy day, you can absolutely do that too. I wouldn't recommend it. There are better ways to do it, but you could build an emergency fund with cash as well. I just wanted to note that a credit card does not count as an emergency fund. Access to putting yourself in debt is not a build-up of an emergency fund. So how do you build one? If you have the ability, I recommend opening a bank account and starting with $2,000, and then every time you get paid, whether it be weekly, fortnightly, monthly, take out a percentage of your pay and put it in there. What I personally do is every fortnight I get paid, I put $25 into my emergency fund every time, minimum. Sometimes I might have a little bit left over from my other accounts, I'll put more in, and what I'm trying to do is build it to about $10,000. I worked out how much it would cost me to survive if I had to eat ramen noodles every day for about a year, 6 months to a year. And what I came out with was about 10 grand. So once I get to 10 grand, I'll probably stop putting money into that account and I'll repurpose that money for something else. But until I get there, that's what I'm doing. Just to put it in perspective, if you start with $2,000, let's clear that and actually see how frequently you put money in. Let's say you put $25 a fortnight, which is what I'm doing. Put about $650 a year minimum into that account. Let's say I times that by 10 years, $6,500 plus my original $2,000. I've been doing it for 2 years, so I'm just around the $5,000 mark. It doesn't hurt me to put that money into the account, and I'm building towards that $10,000 mark, which I'm not in any rush to do it right now. I could do it if I wanted to, but I'm happy to just put away $25 a fortnight. It's mindless, it's effortless, and I already have a little buffer, which is building to my bigger buffer. It's not the fact that I'm not ready right now if I don't have access to that money, because I am, but this money is solely being purposed for a future event that hopefully doesn't happen. It just goes to show that putting money into this account over time is going to build up and just make me more and more reassured in myself and my safety. I started with $2,000 in that account, and now I'm sitting at around about $4,500 in my emergency fund, which over time, it's only been a couple of years and it's built up to that already. It's been a pretty easy ride to get that savings, and I feel comfortable knowing that if I needed to draw upon that money, I could. Ultimately, it's something that will build over time, and it will give you confidence in knowing that you have a safety net if you need it. What I recommend you do is work out your expenses between 6 to 12 months, how much it would cost you if you were on your own needing to survive, and then starting an emergency fund and working towards that number. If your car breaks down and you're going to lose your job because you can't fix it and you need that money, that would be an emergency. If it's going to derail your life, it's an emergency, take it out. Emergency funds are supposed to be used in ultimate emergencies, not things that can be fixed through other means. You can actually tell your employer to pay that money, that $25, into that bank account before paying it into your normal account. You can actually tell your employers or ask them to break up where your money goes to which account. And what I recommend doing is telling them to put that $25 into that account no matter what, every time you get paid, and then you won't even have to worry about transferring it. You literally could ignore it. You could even ask your bank to hide the bank account. I believe in your online banking, you can hide the bank account so that it's just there doing something in the background, and they're transferring $25 to it every single pay, and you never even have to worry about it because it's just hidden away for a rainy day. If you ever need it, go into the bank, ask them, how much have I got in there, or track it yourself, and there's your money ready to go to save your life essentially. That's pretty much it. Short one today. Just wanted to cover it because in times like this, I'm sure there are people who would definitely need to be drawing upon that money to survive. I just wanted to cover this overly saturated topic because it's really important to reiterate that an emergency fund is vital to your survival. If you think about it now and prepare for it in the future, you're going to end up being in a much better position if something were to ever happen to you. In times like this, with COVID going on around the world, I'm sure there are people who would definitely have needed to draw upon that money, and I'm sure that people who actually planned for this would have been feeling a lot more comfortable in this situation specifically. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. I'll see you in the next video.